and welcome to the ThinkMHK Podcast presented by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. On this podcast, you will hear about a variety of local matters pertaining to the business community. You also hear from local business owners to hear their story and gain valuable business insights. Thanks for tuning in today. Welcome back to the ThinkMHK Podcast. My co-host for this segment is Darren Solden. Hey, Darren.
Hey, Jason. Really excited about today. We've got a good show.
We have two great guests with us. With BHS Construction, we have Wayne Sloan, who's chairman of the board of BHS, and we have Patrick Schutter, who's president and CEO. Hey, guys.
Hey. Hello.
So let's find out a little bit about both of you. Wayne, why don't you tell us about yourself, and then we'll ask Patrick to do the same.
I was born and raised in Manhattan. I was born into a construction family. My father was in business here for 42 years with Green Construction. He actually came from Nebraska. He was a corn husker. I was pretty blessed to be growing up in Manhattan. It was just kind of had an ideal childhood. Went to K-State. Was gone for 1 year to Wichita and then came back and worked for my father and then got into BHS Construction in 1982. My wife, Cindy, we met at K-State. We're married here and we have 3 children. And it's, again, been a great life, a great place to raise a family.
What was it? You saw her at a college party and said, "That's the girl I'm going to marry"?
That's the truth.
Patrick, how about you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Emporia, Kansas, all through grade school, high school. I moved up here in 2000. I followed a girl up here that I thought I really liked. And, well, I got a degree and lost the girl. She became a doctor. I don't know who was smarter out of the deal. But anyways, I ended up with a really great degree. And then through my college career, I ended up working for BHS Construction, and specifically Wayne. Really realized that was the type of culture and company that I wanted to work for. And so I just never left. Wayne couldn't get rid of me. Now, let's see, almost 19 years later, I've got 4 kids and a wife and a really great family and a really great big BHS family also now.
And so you did find another girl. That was
I did.
You left everybody on the edge of their seat.
She's not a doctor, but she's way better. She's a great mother. So
well, good. So talk about your history with BHS Construction, including the history of the company and then your role within the company.
Yes, so BHS Construction actually started out as Burrell Rogers. It was founded in 1965. When I came to work for Mr. Burrell in 1982, the company was more or less dormant. We started the company up, and it was named BHS, and that's after Bob Burrell, Mike Hoover, and myself, Wayne Sloan. We started out in light commercial around Manhattan. We ended up doing mainly general construction work, but did get into some high-end housing throughout the years, mainly for customers that were commercial clients of ours. We have seen really great years and growth almost every year that we've been in business. We had one downturn during the 2008 crisis, but after that, it's been great all these years. The business has grown. We've grown in employees, and probably a defining moment of our company was actually when I did have the opportunity to hire Patrick. He was the first employee that we had that was a Kansas State graduate in construction science. Most of the construction science graduates didn't want to stay around Manhattan, so that was a defining moment. And having my son come in and bring some younger blood and life, and we've been able to continually hire Kansas State students, and it's provided us with a great growth path.
I thought I was the first guy that the rest of the guys could finally put up with.
Well, that was even questionable.
And, of course, you did end up passing the president CEO baton to Patrick a couple of years ago, right?
Yes. Actually, that happened a couple of years ago. And my wife, every time that I tell everybody I'm still working, she doesn't believe that. So, but anyway, Patrick and Levi Snyder is another one of the owners, my son, Zach. And then we just added a fifth owner at this time, Rex Adams, who came back to Manhattan from Colorado. So we've got a really great team.
So you grew up in Manhattan. You mentioned that earlier. Talk about how the community has changed in your lifetime.
I was born at a house up on Valley Drive. It's up by the high school. My dad built it in 1951. and he moved in a week before the 51 flood hit, which was kind of unusual. Right after that, they had a number of friends, 21 people living in a 3-bedroom house while everybody was trying to get back to normal after the 51 flood. I was born in 1953, and basically behind that house was mainly pasture land. There wasn't any cattle, but it was wide open spaces. So I lived somewhat in the middle of Manhattan and still had green spaces to play. It was like, say, I had a kind of an ideal childhood. Just watching the growth out west of the community, and West Loop Shopping Center was, basically brand new when I was still a young, still in grade school. That was far west. And so as you see the growth around the community, it's pretty amazing. The growth east, what K-State has done and with their facilities and things that they've built through the years. And then you bring in Colbert Hills. It's just pretty amazing how quickly the community expanded. But I think it still keeps the small town feel that everybody appreciates.
So there's a lot about Manhattan. You said this changed. What do you see in Manhattan that makes it such a desirable place to live?
I don't know. There's just a great vibrancy, and I don't know if it really. I think it kind of stems from K-State. The culture that Bill Snyder really created around this, winning college. This winning football team. It was fun to be here, fun to live here, and I think that really just spawned at least a lot of starting growth. It kept me around here, and most of my friends, I don't feel like they wanted to leave, but they didn't have the opportunity that I had to stick around. And I think that that was definitely one of the things that I saw about Manhattan, why I wanted to be around.
I think vibrancy is a great word. That was the word that I used when 3 years ago I was being recruited to Manhattan by Wayne Sloan, which I guess both of us have that in common, right? Because I was surprised I'd not been to Manhattan. And based on what I read about it and heard about it, when I actually got here and saw all that was going on and all the connections that were made and the vibrancy in downtown in Aggieville and West Manhattan, it was a huge selling point to me. And I have challenged our team that we need to do a better job of portraying that vibrancy outside of Manhattan, because I'm not sure people understand what a great community it is.
Having the university here that, affords a small community like ours with a number of cultural things. Obviously, Coach Snyder turned this community into stepping it up to the next level, and everything grew after the football team started winning, and we all owe him a huge debt for that. But having the airport here, another huge thing that makes our community stand out, having the ability to, get out of Manhattan very easily to business or pleasure destinations.
I might add too, Fort Riley's obviously a big influence in the area. I'm going to also add, just because I live towards Wamego, but I think Wamego and Junction City bring a different aspect to Manhattan and the culture of living here. You kind of have a bunch of different types of living environments that you can choose to be around. I live out in the rural community and I love it. But I'm so close to Manhattan. It's a 10-minute drive for me, or from Wamego, it's a 10-minute drive, and almost similar from Junction City. So you really have a large range of choice of lifestyle that you want to live.
Darren, Patrick just got on the Pottawatomie County Economic Development Board, and I think Jack has trained him well into making sure he always talks about Wamego and in Pottawatomie County, no matter what he's doing, right?
It's all in the region, right?
It's funny too, because I actually live in Wabunsee County, although my address is a Wamego address. I'm kind of in this little black hole of not getting called for jury duty, I think, is why they say it's in a black hole.
There is something to be said, though, about the region. You can live in a townhome, you can live in an apartment downtown, you can live in a situation where you can feed cattle and be at the office in a suit and tie 20 minutes later. So it really is a good place for that. So we've talked about what makes Manhattan a great place to live. Why is Manhattan such a good place for business? Why has Manhattan been a great place for BHS to grow?
Well, just the amount of growth that has happened in Manhattan, we really feel fortunate, especially being in the building community, that we've been able to grow along with the needs of the community to really service that need for business growth. We've thrived because of thriving businesses in Manhattan. And, even since I've only been here since 2004, there was some great leaps and bounds 10 years before I was here. But really, in the last 19 years, just great leaps and bounds in what the business community in Manhattan has done.
One of the things that we've been fortunate, and I mentioned it earlier with K-State being here and having the construction science program up there. Once we were able to get people to understand, what type of business we, had and what we could do for them, it's really been one of the keys to our success and our growth is being able to recruit really good employees. We try to treat our employees properly, pay them well, give them good benefits, and create that sense of family. But having the college here, that's really helped us be able to get really great individuals to work for the company.
So in 2020, at our inaugural Business Awards luncheon, you all actually, it was a virtual luncheon at that point, but you all were the very first winner of our Lifetime Achievement Award, which we call the Cornerstone Award. What was your reaction to winning, and kind of what are your thoughts about that? Looking back on being selected for that,
I feel extremely fortunate to be part of that receiving, company for getting that award. However, I feel like really all of that was earned prior to my tenure at BHS. I really feel like Wayne really is the cornerstone, and a lot of the longer-term employees at BHS were a lot bigger part of that than what I was. But it was really neat to see that honor happen, because I always talk to the rest of our company about how much of a cornerstone Wayne and some of his longer-term employees really made BHS in the community. And that's why I was really proud to have seen BHS get it, not necessarily on my own personal behalf, but just on behalf of Wayne and what he had done for the previous 30 years.
It was a great honor to be the first one, and I really appreciate it very much. We've always tried to be a good citizen and do things for the community, do things for our employees, but being the first Cornerstone winner was very special for all of us.
So Wayne, you've always been active with the Chamber for a number of years. You served as the chair of the Chamber Board of Directors in 2019, and Jason alluded to that was during the time that he was brought to the community. Why has your involvement with the Chamber been so important to you?
I've always felt that the working for the Chamber of Commerce and being a member of the Chamber of Commerce was very important for myself and for BHS Construction. I was actually on the board 4 times before I was asked to be in a leadership role. As I go back, the Chamber is how I was able to meet people and people of influence. So it was a great mentoring piece for me, but also allowed me to find the people that I needed to connect with to be able to do the work that we have over the years. The Chamber has been for growth. Some people don't like the word growth, but actually a community needs to grow. If they stay stagnant, they're going to get eaten up by taxes and a whole number of things. So the Chamber pushing the growth of our community is very important. It seemed like every time that I ran out of work, all I did is I went to a Chamber event and was able to mingle with people, and somebody would always say, "Hey, Wayne, I need you to come by and see me because I have a job that I need you to look at." So it actually provided me work. So every hour that I put into it, I really think that I got a lot back out of it.
And of course, during your year of chair, that you were instrumental in the revamped Young Professional Group, which is Hype now. You've mentioned that was one of your proudest accomplishments. Talk why you decided to take that on as a challenge.
I saw around the community that I thought the young professionals were getting a little bit, they just felt like they weren't involved enough. And the true growth of the future Chamber is going to need to be those younger professionals, and we needed to provide an avenue for them to be able to become involved in the Chamber more, to be to understand how it worked, understand the goals, understand how they could integrate into that, and it's really turned out better than I expected. They've really taken this thing to a whole nother level. And I think that we're going to see a very educated and energetic group of young professionals that are going to be the future of the Chamber of Commerce.
And one of the other accomplishments that maybe you don't brag as much about, but you did lead the effort to replace Lyle Butler as the president, which turned out to be me, and I appreciate that. But when you were going to be chair and you found out that Lyle was going to retire, was your immediate reaction to kick him in the shins or kind of talk about that and then talk about that process?
Actually, when I was asked to be on the Chamber Executive Committee, and Lyle was the person that asked me, my first question was, Lyle, how long are you going to be here? And he told me that he wasn't going to be the CEO and president of the Chamber when he turned 70. So with my sharp math skills, I pretty much figured out when that was going to be and figured that it was probably going to land on my shoulders to find his replacement. As we went through that process, we did hire somebody from the outside to come in and lead us through that process, put together a fairly large committee to go through the process. It was interesting time and interesting process, and we had a number of people that applied, and we narrowed it down. We came down to Jason and another person from outside of the community, and I had to take Jason to Valentine's Day dinner with my wife and buy him a rose along with her to make sure that he really wanted to come to the community. So
I did go on a Valentine's date with Wayne and his wife. That
it was the rose that sold it, wasn't it?
It was the rose.
We might say Wayne Sloan, the closer. From
That's right.
Right.
So here's another interesting backstory that not very many people know, and I won't mention any names, but at the time I didn't know, but during the last interview, one of my dear friends was the other finalist, and I had called them because I was going to be going through their town on my way to Manhattan to see if they wanted to have lunch, and we figured out we were the two finalists. So that was an interesting dynamic as part of that process as well. So
yes,
but I will say this, and I've said this publicly before, but I want to say again, I appreciate Wayne and Matt and the other members of the search committee, because it was a great process to go through, and I was not convinced I was going to come to Manhattan when I started, and they quickly convinced me it was a great place to be, and so I was all in once I got the opportunity to see the community. But I think more important is I appreciate Wayne's support. It's not always easy, and to interject a new person after 20 years of somebody else, and there's been a lot of hard things that we've had to do along the way, but Wayne has always been a tremendous source of support and advice and mentorship. And I can tell you right now, I don't know if I'd still be here if it wasn't for Wayne Sloan, because there were a lot of challenging times that he really helped me get through, and I appreciate him and all the other leaders, but specifically Wayne, because he was the chair the first year I was here, and it was difficult at times, but I think we've come out the other side, and we're seeing a lot of advancement. So thanks for your leadership, Wayne.
You bet. It was a really interesting year. I had some other things that I hoped to accomplish during the year, but really it ended up, I knew that one of the goals was making sure that Jason got integrated into the community, and he actually did not start until March. And so we had Karen Hibbert stepped up and was the interim CEO during that time when Lyle left and Jason started. So we had about 3 months in there where we were somewhat getting prepared. I spent a little more time at the chamber than I might have liked to during that 3 months, but I think
that was all right.
Yeah,
Pat was very happy that I was gone. It was an interesting time, and bringing somebody new in, there's always adjustments, and our partners trying to get everybody back on the same page. One of the things that Lyle was great about was getting everybody together, and when somebody like that leaves, everybody kind of splinters apart for a little while, and then bringing everybody back together. But it was an interesting year, and I thought we made some real advancements.
And I'm real proud of where we are now and the advancements we've made, particularly in economic development, which I'll give a lot of credit to Darren for. So, again, thank you so much for that, and do appreciate that. So, are you ready for our next segment, which I know you're aware of, which is our rapid fire segment? So, number one, what is something people often find surprising about you?
I love Hallmark Christmas movies.
That's surprising.
It's my happy place.
There you go. Best piece of advice you have ever received?
To tithe.
That's good advice. What is your favorite holiday?
Obviously, Christmas.
What is something you would like to try but haven't had the opportunity?
I'd love to go on a river cruise.
Yeah, me too. I think that'd be fun. Yep. What's your favorite pet?
It's got to be Chuck the dog. Our current dog is the best animal we've ever owned. Charla likes him too. I bring him down to visit her.
And well, in fact, Wayne said, "Can we cancel this so I can go play with the dog?" That's exactly what he said. The biggest lesson the pandemic taught you?
I really am lazy.
I don't think that's probably true, but Samsung, Apple, or other?
Apple.
What was your first concert and your favorite concert?
Ahern, Blood, Sweat, and Tears in 1970, I believe.
And that was your first and favorite? Okay. Who is someone you look up to?
Dennis Mullen.
I do too. That's a good answer. And then the last question, texting or talking?
Talking.
I believe that too. So although we text, I get a lot of texts from you. Well, fellas, thanks so much for being with us today. And thank you both for your leadership and BHS involvement in the chamber, as well as all the other community activities that you're engaged in. I know this community is a better place because of both of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The ThinkMHK Podcast is brought to you by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Don't forget to subscribe and like the ThinkMHK Podcast on your preferred podcast provider, and you will never risk missing an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. To find out more about today's topic or other chamber activities, please go to manhattan.org. And now back to today's show. Welcome back to the ThinkMHK Podcast. My co-host for this segment is Charla Meisenheimer. Hey, Charla.
Hey, Jason.
So our member spotlight today is on New Boston, and representing them is Lisa Sisley. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Jason and Charla. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Welcome to the ThinkMHK Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a bit about yourself and how did you ended up in Manhattan?
Well, my dad was a K-Stater. I was always going to go to K-State. That was a foregone conclusion. So 40 years ago, last year, I can't believe it's been that long, I came to Manhattan as a freshman, and I've just stayed ever since. I tell people inertia is a powerful force. Sometimes when you're somewhere, you just stay. But my husband and I have had wonderful opportunities, and Manhattan has just always been a great place to live, raise our daughter, start a business, have good careers, get more education. So there was never any reason to leave.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Ingalls, Kansas, population 285. There were 17 kids in my class. And I was neither salutatorian nor valedictorian out of my class. But nevertheless, K-State let me in, and I've been here ever since.
I've met very few people who had fewer in their graduating class than I did. Mine had 21.
21, yeah.
Yeah, and I was salutatorian, which barely got me in the top 10%. So that's always an interesting way when you're filling out your applications. So.
Yeah, I think I would have been salutatorian except for that C that I got in home economics because I can't sew worth a darn.
Well, I almost lost my salutatorian in shop because I am not handy at all. And my shop teacher told my mom, who was a school teacher, said, I'm not going to be the only teacher in the school to give him a B, so we'll just give him an A.
Dang.
But I got a really low one. It was like a 92 or something like that. So.
I wish my teacher had that kind of mercy, but I did not.
So apparently we had similar high school careers. So talk about your professional career in Manhattan and how did you end up with New Boston?
Like I say, I came to K-State. My sophomore year, I had an awakening that the career as a teacher that I always thought I was going to have was actually not going to be a good choice for me. Those pre-professional experiences that they have at K-State are very useful. But anyway, it was a shock to my system, and I did not end up graduating from college until I was 28, almost 29. And in that interim period, I had a lot of really great jobs in Manhattan. Mostly in libraries. I worked in Manhattan Public Library and then a couple of research specialty libraries here in town. Even though I did not have a degree in English or anything, people were bringing me books to edit, journals, articles to look at and edit, revise, and all kinds of just content work, things like that. So I thought, I'm just going to go back and finish my degree in straight English rather than English education, which was what I was originally going to do. I had also worked for 5 years at the Master Teacher, producing videos, editing books, publications, working on marketing. I left there in 2003, and it was shortly after that I met Kristen Brighton, one of the other owners. We were both doing freelance work, and she and I ended up working together for a few years in various ways, including both being staff at the College of what is now the College of Health and Human Sciences. At the same time, she was working with Susan Religa on some projects, including the original Manhattan 24/7 campaign for the Chamber. And one day, Kristen just floated the idea, what do you think? What do you think about starting a business together? And I said, I've been thinking about that too. And so February of 2006, the three of us opened our doors, and that's how we got here.
And explain the name.
So we had agreed between the three of us to call ourselves something creative group. But we could not agree on what the something was. And Kristen's grandmother, Bernice Brighton, suggested New Boston Creative Group. And it was kind of around the sesquicentennial of the city. And so a lot of the history was just kind of floating in the air. But a lot of people don't know that from April of 1855 to June of 1855, Manhattan was called Boston or New Boston in some documents. And so we thought, thank you, Grandma Bernice. That is what we were going to do. And that solved that big hurdle.
That's a great name, but something creative group might have been
that might have been good.
It definitely would have been memorable. So starting a new business is quite a venture. You kind of blew it off like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that too. Let's just do it. Talk about what went into that, the thoughts of that, and leaving a job where I assume you were getting a regular paycheck and taking that risk.
Yeah. So Kristen came from a small business owning family. She had that background. I had freelanced, but I was strictly, a one-woman show, and I did not know very much. I mean, I went in really naive. But I knew that Kristen and Susan had skill sets that I did not have, and that they would make up gaps in my knowledge. We had good trust amongst each other, and I could do things that neither of them could do. And so I just had this confidence that we would get it done. And we had a really strong operating agreement to start out, and we knew what our exit strategy was if it didn't pan out. I kind of just took a leap of faith. I believed in them, and I think they felt that way about me. And, it's worked out well. But really, Jason, there was not a lot of thought that I put into it as far as soul searching or risk assessment. I liked working with both of them, and I thought we could do something good.
In 2019, you were selected as Volunteer of the Year. What was your first reaction when you heard your name called?
So I would not have guessed that our office could have kept it quiet. There was no telegraphing of anything. I was completely taken aback. And afterwards, some people who were sitting at the table said to me, "You had this scowl on your face." And I'm like, well, that's my hard thinking face, because Wayne was just baffling me. Wayne Sloan, as he was describing, because I was like, this sounds like, oh man, this is me. I mean, I was completely taken off guard. And so that's why I looked like I had a scowl, because I was trying to figure things out. It was amazing. And coming from someone like Wayne Sloan, that honor meant even more, because there are a few people in this community that you could look at and say, they've been a better volunteer than Wayne Sloan has. And I just, I appreciated it so much coming from him. And I was totally surprised and honored. I have put a lot of hours in with the Chamber, and I was never looking for any kind of a payoff, but that was a wonderful experience.
And we probably should say maybe that you had no idea that was coming then, because at the annual dinner, we don't typically announce the winners, so they don't know ahead of time. No one called you ahead of time, and you were just in the audience with a table of 8, and your daughter got to be there that year,
yes,
right?
Yes, my daughter, my son-in-law. Unfortunately, my husband was really sick.
Oh, that's
really
right.
Sick. This was February of 2019, so in hindsight, we don't know what he had, but we think it was just some kind of a respiratory infection. But yeah, he was not able to come, but my son-in-law was able to be there, and so that was great. And several of our staff members. But nobody telegraphed anything. Nobody said, "What are you wearing?" Nobody said, there was nothing to, and I had zero idea. And it was only started to dawn on very slowly as Wayne was talking. And then I kind of looked around our table, and they were all sort of like, giggling, and I mean, it was amazing.
That's awesome. I do remember a conversation I had with Kristen right before then that said, when she gets up, take her name tag off for the pictures.
I don't remember whether she did that or not, but I guess she did. I was kind of in a fog.
So Lisa, tell us, you talked a little bit about having your family near. What makes Manhattan a special place to live and to raise a family?
I think that, I've lived in Kansas my whole life, and I think the fact that we have the university here and Fort Riley, even though that we are similar in size to a lot of other Midwestern communities, maybe hundreds, those two factors give us a demographic mix, a vibe, a feel, and a capacity in this community that many do not have. We have expertise. We have people who value education. We have a depth of resources here that many communities just do not have. So in our school district, we have highly educated and expert teachers. In our business community, we have solid people who understand policy, good decision-making practices, balancing of various needs that a community has. Manhattan is just a very healthy place to live with a lot of people who can contribute to making that happen.
You and your entire team at New Boston, a creative group, have been heavily involved in the chamber for a number of years. Why is that so important to you?
Again, I'm going to give credit to Kristen, because I walk in and I'm just naive. And of course, I'd heard of the Chamber of Commerce, but I didn't really understand why it was important. And Kristen, one of the first things we did was she said, we're joining the chamber. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what that means, but okay. And so, but we started attending business after hours and other events and meeting people and kind of understanding things. And then sometime in maybe 2008, I was starting to get my feet under me, and I joined the Public Affairs Committee. And that was the committee that kind of advised the Chamber Board on legislative affairs and municipal government actions and how that would impact the business community. And I really learned a lot there, and have just always kind of maintained an interest in that aspect of chamber work. How does the chamber, representing the business community, interact with many other aspects of our city and our state?
So along those lines, about 6 years ago, you and a couple other people decided to replace the policy committee or restructure the policy committee to what we now call the Business Advocacy Committee. Talk about why you all decided that was important and why restructuring that was imperative to the chamber.
In 2016, 15 or 16, the idea of doing that kind of sprung up actually from Matt Crocker of SPS Companies and Kristen, because she was board chair in 2016. And they decided that the board as a whole decided that the Public Affairs Committee was perhaps could have more value to the chamber board and to the chamber with decision-making input, diving more deeply into issues that the chamber needed to be able to respond to. And so there was a task force formed, and Lucy Williams chaired that task force, and I was on that. And so that was how the Business Advocacy Committee was formed. I wrote guidelines and bylaws for that, and I think I was the first chair. Okay. And it was just kind of a continuum for me. And then that's just been, I just rotated off of it. I just aged off of that now. So, but I think that it has evolved into a really valuable source of information and guidance for the chamber as a whole, because you got a lot of people on there from various industries, sizes of business, nonprofit and for-profit, who can all kind of bring their perspective to the table. We've wrestled with some really tough things, and I think we've come to some good decisions for the good of the chamber.
So it was interesting. You mentioned you did roll off in December, and that one of the things that when BAC formed, they created terms, and so there's term limits. Previously, you just showed up. If you wanted to be part of the policy committee, you just showed up. So you mentioned you started in 2008. So you had a 13-year run on the chamber's lead policy
then it's
committee. Is that correct?
Definitely time to be gone. Then
You're not having withdrawal symptoms at this point?
Well, I might every other week when it's meeting time. But I will say that it's ironic because I learned so much just being able to walk onto public affairs back in the day, because you have people like Dick Carter, Sue Peterson, lots of people who are really involved in politics and elected government in Manhattan, who were there. And I mean, I just learned tons just sitting there and soaking that up. So I've had a really great experience with the chamber and with just having that opportunity to learn so much and to contribute as I can.
And we still have opportunities for people who want to come and listen. We have Good Morning Manhattan. We have Power Lunch. We have some other opportunities to come meet with elected officials and others. So we didn't get rid of. We may have gotten rid of the policy committee, but the opportunities to hear things is still available.
Yeah, and I would just add that elected officials come in and talk with the BAC committee all the time, and it's a great opportunity for good back and forth to understand the factors that are impacting our community from both sides of an issue sometimes.
So as someone who has been in the business community for a while, if you had one piece of advice for a young professional just breaking into the Manhattan business community, what would it be?
Yeah, I get asked this sometimes. My response is you need to find other people who can help you be successful. For me, as I've kind of touched on, it was going into business with two other people who knew how to do things that I did not know how to do and that I did not have experience doing. I know most people picture themselves as the solopreneur and, they're going to be the next Elon Musk or, Mark Zuckerberg, and they're going to change the world with some revolutionary thinking. But you know what? Everybody needs help. And having 3 owners of New Boston has given us the capacity. We have 14-member team. The 3 of us have the capacity to manage that many people and to concentrate on business development. And, if life happens to one of us, the other 2 can step in and keep running the business. A lot of sole proprietorships fail when something happens to them in their real life. And that didn't happen to us. And we didn't plan it that way. It was just kind of dumb luck. But it's worked out well for us because it's been 15 years. And a lot happens to people in 15 years, but the business never suffered when things happened to us because the other 2 could just, pick up and go on. If you decide that you're going into business for yourself, hire an attorney, get a good accountant, and do what they tell you to do. That's my short answer.
That is great advice. The other thing is you talk about it is good when you have co-owners, but one of the things that clearly you all have done that a lot of people can't is get along.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not everybody gets their way on every decision, right?
Absolutely.
So you all have figured out how to make that work.
That's one. I mentioned our operating agreement. It's 27 pages long. We need to revisit it.
You must have written it.
Because no, I didn't. A lawyer wrote it. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. No, it spells out the things that one of us has the authority to decide, 2 of us can decide, or what all 3 of us have to decide. We have very rarely had to refer to it, but we've joked that most of the time, whichever one of us yells the loudest about something wins. But it's also, 2 out of 3 a lot of the time. And we've talked each other off of ledges sometimes, but we have also supported each other in new, risky, daring things that we, have decided that, okay, yeah, we're going to go for it because we've talked it out and we've all got skin in the game. And, so it's been a good little community. We had worked together. We trusted and liked each other before we started the business, so that really helped. But yeah, we do like each other and we do respect each other. And
you can tell. And it would be neglect for me to say you are a current board member of the chamber, and we appreciate that. I also want to mention that we use New Boston as well as some of our other marketing firms in the community for some of our efforts, and we recently just won an award from the International Economic Development Council for our biosecurity marketing project, which if anybody's interested in that, you can go to our website or go to one of our social media channels. But there's a lot of really good content about the community and our expertise in biosecurity. So and we appreciate New Boston's help on that.
Thank you. That's been a great project for us to be part of. As my dad used to say, do good and make good. So, if you could make a living doing things that are productive and positive, then that's that's just fantastic.
All right, so now we're going to get to the fun part, and it is the rapid fire questions section of the member spotlight. And so Charla has 10 questions that we're going to go through and get your answers on.
Something people often find surprising about you.
That I was 43 when we started New Boston. People think that if you're, an entrepreneur, you have to be a 23-year-old genius, and you do not. There's no expiration date, and you sure don't have to be a genius. I'm proof of that.
I love that. What are you currently reading, or what's your favorite book?
I love murder mystery series. I do not read books that if an author has only written one book, I do not even start it. I look and I go, oh, you got 15 books? Okay, you must be good. I'm going to read you. So that's what I like to do.
Best piece of advice you ever received?
So at a job I had, a leader in that business said to me, we are going to solve this problem. You are going to solve it, and I am going to back you up. And I had no experience doing with what he told me I was going to do, but he believed in me. So it wasn't really advice, but it was more of an order. But it ended up, he changed my whole mindset about what I was capable of and what I could do. And if that had not happened, I would not have been able to start New Boston. He saw that I had some capabilities that I did not know I had, I guess is a good way to put it.
It's a great mentor story.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, he was wonderful.
What's your pet peeve?
Slow left lane drivers. They are monsters. Monsters, Jason. Monsters. Monsters.
What is something you would like to try but haven't had the opportunity?
Going up in a helicopter. That is on my bucket list, yes.
What advice would you give the 19-year-old you?
I would tell her that every day that goes by, you will become more resilient and better at solving your problems. They will become easier to handle, and they will weigh you down less. So just ease up on yourself.
What's something you always travel with?
My pillow.
Really?
Hotel pillows will suffocate you if you give them a chance. I hate hotel pillows. I hope Karen Hibbert is listening to this.
Biggest lesson the pandemic taught you?
Do the best you can for your people, and they will stick with you. We learned that lesson in the recession in 2009 and 10 as well. Treat them as well as you possibly can.
Samsung, Apple, or other?
Well, Apple. We're an all Mac shop. It makes our life a lot easier.
You can have dinner with any 4 people in the world. Who's at your invite table?
This was really hard, but I came up with Michelle Obama, Anthony Fauci, Mitt Romney, and Laura Kelly, because I admire brave people. I admire people who follow their own conscience and principles.
That's it, right?
Yeah,
so let me
it
ask
is.
you real quick on that last one. 4 because this, you and I may be opposite here. 4 because there was a bunch and you had to narrow it down to 4, or 4 because there was only a few you wanted and 4 was...
Well, some of them are dead.
Oh, okay.
And so
well, you could have said that. We can't get any of these people to come to dinner with you anyway.
I know,
so.
but I was like, oh, I'm trying to follow the rules. No, I mean, it was just a really interesting question. Yeah, it was like, well, there are people in my regular life. There are famous people, but thinking just really big picture, if I had a chance, who would I sit down with? And I don't know.
Sometimes I think it would be hard for me to even come up with 4 that I'd want to be around that long. That's just me.
I'll remember to eat real quickly whenever I'm around you.
I know. Or, when you get a dinner invitation, like how important that is, right?
An invitation.
There you go. That is
when you're invited to Jace's table,
All right, Lisa, thank you so much for being with us today, but also thank you for your leadership in the organization for many years and New Boston's participation with the Chamber. We appreciate everything you guys do.
Thanks, Jason. We appreciate everything you do for us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of ThinkMHK, a podcast produced by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. If you enjoyed the ThinkMHK podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe and share it out on your social media channels. Feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce.